Today is Chavdala Tevis, Sunday Chavdala Tevis, the Alter Rebbe's Yortzeit. Tovshin Ayin Zayin. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamorim Tovshin Yud Gimel. We are up to page Kuf Gimel. Where did you say we are, Harris? Mamish?
Mamish.
Come back on the Mamish.
9 lines from the bottom.
Third of the way up, from the bottom.
Nine lines from the bottom
Emet.
on page Kuf Gimel at the full stop of Emes. In brief summary, the Rebbe is focusing on the two names of Esther, Hadassah he Esther. And the Rebbe explained that it is a reference to, in the spiritual sense, in the deeper sense, it is a reference to Malchus. And Malchus has two dimensions, two aspects to it. It's got the way there is Malchus the way it is in its realm, meaning Malchus Datzilus, for example, or a little bit later on speaks in a higher level, even an Ak or higher. But there is Malchus the way it is in its realm, and then there is Malchus as it descends into the next realm, into the lower realm. The way it is in its own realm, it is Hadassah. It is revealed. Hadassah is a reference to Tzaddikim, etc., etc., as the Rebbe explained earlier in the Mamar. Then there is Esther. There's Malchus as it descends lower. As it descends lower, it is in a manner of Esther, which means concealed. V'anochi haster aster. Despite the fact, says the Rebbe, that Malchus descends into the lower realm, as when Malchus descends into the lower realm, it's in a manner of Hester, concealed. It nevertheless retains Ponai. V'anochi haster aster, haster aster Ponai. That the Pnimius is still retained, albeit in a concealed manner. In other words, the Rebbe said, these two dimensions of Esther are referred to as Ponim. If you remember, the Rebbe quoted from the Tikkun Zohar, from the Ramaz, that there are 4 levels: Ponim, Ocher, Yemin, and Small. Ponim is a reference to Atzilus, being that the dominant sphere in Atzilus is Chochmah, right? Because the 4 realms each have a dominant sphere or spheres. Atzilus being Chochmah, Bria being Bina, Yetzirah being Zoh, the 6 Midas, and Asiya being Malchus. We're talking, of course, about the spheres of Atzilus, that each one of these realms has a dominant sphere of Atzilus which dominates that realm. It gives the character to that realm, right? So Atzilus is Chochmah. Chochmah is Pnimius, Ponim. So therefore, all the spheres in Atzilus, including Malchus, as they are in Atzilus, are in a manner of Ponim. And even as Malchus descends into Biyah, it still retains that Ponim, albeit in a concealed manner. That's what the Rebbe basically said. So that was the first part. Then the Rebbe said, the other reason, he gave another reason why Malchus is referred to as Ponim. This reason is because it's dominated by Spheres HaChochmah of Atzilus, and therefore it's Ponim because Chochmah of Atzilus is Ponim. Another explanation that Rebbe gave was the fact that it refers to the Pnimius of Neshamas Yisrael, the inner aspect of the souls of Yidden. And here the Rebbe went into an expose of a subject which we already had in a previous Mamar, and it will recur, I believe, in some Amarim going forward. The idea of Ak, Adam Kadmon, primordial man, the first level, as it were, of Seder Hishtalshelus, the beginning of all Seder Hishtalshelus, Adam Kadmon, after the Tzimtzum, right? And the Rebbe explained that he brought from the Eitz Chaim, from the writings of the Arizal, that within Adam Kadmon we have the quarry of souls and we have the quarry of Spheres. Quarry of souls are levushim, garments, to the quarry of Spheres, right? And the Rebbe explained the 5 dimensions of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida, in ascending order. Yechida being what? The highest of them all, but not notwithstanding that it is the highest of the 5 levels, they're still names. It's still a label. You still are able to call that level with a name. You're able to attribute with the title Yechida. That denotes that it's not really and fully the essence of the soul. And the Rebbe explained that the essence of the soul is the Nitzutz Beirei, the spark of the Creator that clothes itself into the Yechida, and that is the Etzem HaNefesh. That's the Pinta Yid. Is that Nitzutz Beirei, the spark of the Creator. Where does that spark of the Creator come from? So the Rebbe said, first, that being that the quarry of souls are garments to the quarry of Sfiris, right? In Ak, in Adam Kadmon.
Why are souls garments? Why is Sfiris the garments?
Why are the souls garments?
The soul is highest, that's or it's coming in the garment.
You're quite right in the sense that ultimately the Rebbe says the neshama is rooted higher than the Sfiris. We'll see that in a minute. The entire process of Seder Ishtalshalos and the purpose and the fulfilling of the purpose of creation is made up of an interactive process, if you will, between souls, Torah, or let's call this between souls and Sfiris. When a Yid does a mitzvah, what does a Yid do? When we do a mitzvah, we cause certain energies to flow forth from the upper realms. Those energies are the Sfiris, the celestial divine attributes. The divine attributes. When we perform a mitzvah, we're using our soul. Okay, so there is this entire this constant process between the souls and the Sfiris, right? So, depending on which, so in other words, there's this inseparable link between them, between the souls and the Sfiris. Depending on which level we're talking, the souls are either lower or the Sfiris are lower. Or the souls are lower, the Sfiris are higher. So for example, the Sfiris are Elikus, godliness. The souls, as they come down here, are created beings. They're created Nivra. It's a Nivra. So in Adam Kadmon, once we enter into Seder Ishtalshalos, the souls are levushim to the Sfiris, garments to the Sfiris. So the Sfiris operate and become manifest, as it were, through the souls. Yet, at the root, the souls are higher than the Sfiris, which is the point, actually, that the next point that the Rebbe makes in the Mamar. So he says like this. So the Nitzutz Beirei, the spark of the Creator that's clothed in the soul, the first point that Rebbe makes, comes from the Machzev HaSfiris, from the quarry of the Sfiris in Adam Kadmon, right? And the Sfiris relative to the souls is considered Beirei relative to Nivra. That's the point that Rebbe makes. So when we say Nitzutz Beirei at the lower level, as it were, within Adam Kadmon, we're talking about the spark of the Sfiris clothing itself into the garments of the souls, which are Nivra, right? And even though the Rebbe said that the true essence of the Creator is even higher than Sfiris, because the attributes are already an emanation from the Creator, nevertheless, the Rebbe said the Sfiris are Elikus, they're godliness. As the famous quote from the Tikkun Zayar, Ihu v'chayoyi v'garmoyi chad. He and his vivifications and his causations, that's the English translation in the Tanya, in Siman Chof, are one with Hashem. Meaning to say, who is chayoyi and garmoyi? That's a reference to the Sfiris, right? And they are one with Hashem. So the Sfiris are godliness. So therefore, in this sense, when you say there is a spark of the Sfiris that clothes itself in the Yechida of the soul, you could say that one can attribute that as meaning the Nitzutz Beirei. Now the Rebbe takes it a step further. Ube'emes, 9 lines from the bottom, page Kuf Gimel, by the full stop. The line starts Haim. Ube'emes hinei Nitzutz Beirei hu l'mayla gabe machzev hasfiris. In truth, the spark of the Creator is even higher than the quarry of souls. This is the point that we were just discussing, Akiva.
Yeah.
The Hanitzutz Beiri Ubechinas Atik Canal, because as mentioned before, if you remember, the Rebbe spoke about the levels of the soul, Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya Yechida, right? So he said that Yechida is Keser, is the crown, right? Corresponds to the crown, but which aspect of it? Arich, the external aspect of the crown. What is Atik, the internal aspect of the crown? That is already the spark of the Creator, right? So in other words, in every realm, when we talk about the Nitzutz Beirei, the spark of the Creator, you're talking about the Atik aspect of that realm, as it were, or that level. What is Atik in Adam Kadmon? Ukmeikenu Gamba Adam Kadmon. So too it is also in Adam Kadmon, primordial man. Shanitzutz Beirei b'chinas Atik da'ak. What are we referring to? The Atik of Adam Kadmon. Ki Yudush Yesh b'chinas Atik le'edem Galta da'ak. In the images, as it were, the labels that the Eitz Chaim gives, the Pri Eitz Chaim, the Eitz Chaim give about Adam Kadmon, primordial man, as I mentioned, he sort of gives a bit of an apology for using physical labels, but he describes them in terms of the mouth, the nose, the ears, the skull, right? So the Gulgalta is the skull. The skull being, as it were, the highest dimension in the head. Physically, the skull is the highest point, right? So the over there in Eitz Chaim, he says there is Atik beyond the Gulgalta, beyond that skull of Adam Kadmon. What is that? Shul b'chinas Malchus Ein Sof. It is the lowest dimension. It is the Malchus of the Ein Sof. Adam Kadmon is already what? The first dimension of Seder Shtalshalos after the Tzimtzum. Beyond the Tzimtzum, what do we have? Ein Sof, right? Hashem's infinite light. So beyond the Gulgalta, what is Atik, as it were, of Adam Kadmon? It is the lowest level, Malchus of Ein Sof. That's Atik. And what are we talking about? That is beyond the quarry of Sfiris. The quarry of Sfiris in Adam Kadmon are already within Adam Kadmon. They are the Sfiris of primordial man. What is the Atik for those Sfiris? The lowest, the last dimension, if you will, the last level of the Ein Sof.
Which basically is before Tzimtzum.
Correct. Correct. Does that work out with your? Yeah. The Kameish Malchus Atzilus Nasa Atik Lebriya, just like the lowest level of Atzilus, becomes an Atik. For what? For Bria, for the next realm. Kameikein Malchus Atzilus the Klolus. She bechinas Malchus Ein Sof. Nasa Atik Lebriya the Klolus. Shodom Kadmon. So too, Malchus of the Atzilus, of the general Atzilus, meaning to say the last dimension of the Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, as it were, which is referred to as Malchus of Ein Sof, the last dimension of the in Hashem's infinite light, as it were, before the Tzimtzum. It's difficult to say the last when we talk about the infinite, but obviously there is a Tzimtzum, so the last dimension before that is the Malchus of Ein Sof. Nasa Atik Liberi the Klolus Shu Adam Kadmon. That becomes the Atik, the inner dimension of Keser, of the crown, for what? For Bria the Klolus. Just like we have in the particular realms, Avatzilus, Bria, Tziras, here. They are the four realms, Protis, the four realms of Seder Shtalshalos. So too, in more general terms, we also have these four realms. Adam Kadmon is Bria the Klolus. What is considered Atzilus the Klolus? That's beyond Adam Kadmon, beyond primordial man. So the last dimension of Atzilus the Klolus becomes what? The Keser, the Atik, as it were, the inner dimension of Keser, for Bria the Klolus, which is what? Adam Kadmon. V'hanitzutz beirei. This is the point. That's the punchline. What is the spark of the Creator? Shua pnimis the neshamas Yisrael, which is the inner aspect of the souls of Yidden. V'b'chinas Malchus Ein Sof would be the last dimension, aspect of Hashem's infinite light, Atik the Ak, which becomes the Keser, the crown, the inner dimension of the Keser for Adam Kadmon. So now, what's the point? The Rebbe is giving another interpretation why Malchus is referred to as Ponim. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about Malchus of... Hang on a second, I'm just finished the line. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about Malchus of the Ein Sof, right? And Malchus is referred to as Ponim. Why is it referred to as Ponim? Therefore, Malchus, even after it comes into the chain order of creation, in Adam Kadmon and lower, it retains that Ponim aspect that it has by virtue of the fact that it's rooted where? In Malchus of the Ein Sof beyond Adam Kadmon.
That's what gives that ability to be able to jump down to the next level. It's auto coming up.
Yeah, because our understanding of this, of that 10th level, between that 10th level and Adam Kadmon is Tzimtzum.
Correct.
Some form, which means there's no relationship per se. Whereas Atik has some theoretical relationship.
I believe, I'm not quite sure, but I believe this has to do with the concept of Hishtalshalus HaKsarim. If you remember, we learned in Hishtalshalus, even though it comes down, there's Igulim and Yosher. There's the circular or the transcendent and the immanent, right? So even though the Tzimtzum causes what? The Ein Sof to be contracted, and therefore it gives rise to say the Hishtalshalus, where we have the Eiris, the divine lights and energies that come down in an internal manner. The eagle aspect of it, the transcendent aspect, is still retained. If you remember, we spoke about the metaphor of the eagle aspect, the metaphor of like the bee that takes the the nectar from the flower and just deposits it into the hive. That's why it remains kosher, the honey, because it doesn't become part of, as it were, it's not digested. Similarly, when we talk about the kav, right, which is the line of Ein Sof, which is drawn down through the tzimtzum, it retains the Ein Sof aspect in it. It carries the Ein Sof aspect in it. And that's why when it goes down through the Seder Shtalshalus, in every realm you have the eagle, you have the keser, which is synonymous, which is which is connected to the original eagle agadol, the main, the great big circle, as it were, the great transcendent divine energy before the tzimtzum. That's why at every level you have this keser aspect, and it goes through the Seder Shtalshalus, the divine attributes in that particular realm, but it's still retained. And when it comes to the next,
all there. Everything's always over there.
correct. But the point being that it retains its transcendent character, the keser character, which, in other words, if you remember, the point we learned in one of the previous Mamorim is that keser, even though when we talk about Seder Shtalshalus, you have Chochmah, you have Bina, and so on and so forth, it becomes reduced and reduced and reduced.
Yeah.
And so too, when we talk about, for example, Chochmah Vasiyah, or physical human Chochmah, wisdom, relative to godly wisdom, even though they're called with the same label, they're completely different beings, right? The keser of each realm is similar to the keser of the higher realm. Why? Because simply, if you talk what's keser in terms of kichas and nefesh, you talk about desire. When a person wants something, it doesn't really matter what he wants. The wanting is the same. If I want a physical thing, or if I want something spiritual or something lofty, in terms of the drive, in terms of the faculty, as it were, that is called wanting or pleasure. Pleasure is pleasure. Some people have pleasure from physical things. Some people have pleasure from great spiritual ideas. A tzaddik has pleasure from lachzis b'nei Hashem, seeing the pleasantness of godliness. A more materialistic person will have pleasure from physical things. But pleasure is pleasure. The question is, what do I derive the pleasure from? That's something else. So when we talk about keser, whether it's that transcendent element remains throughout. So despite the fact, as you rightly say, it goes through the tzimtzum and it comes into Adam Kadmon, right? And then it goes down lower. That element is, in that sense, the relationship still remains. Hishtalshalus means that the keser relationship remains intact, all the way going back to beyond the tzimtzum.
Yeah.
It's from tomorrow.